Why don't we go ahead and get started? We are here for the presentation today on Leaders Implementing Positive Change. Delighted to have you with us, whether you are joining us live on site or live online. Welcome aboard. I direct the Office of CE in Psychology here at the American Psychological Association. I'm Dr. Greg Niemeyer, and also the Center for Learning and Career Development. We're thrilled to have you on board today for Dr. Klein's presentation. Just a couple of housekeeping notes to start off. We will go for 90 minutes today. We strongly encourage you to ask questions and participate at any time you would like to. If you're here live on site, not a problem. Just raise your hand. We'll get the microphone to you. If you are joining us live online, great, terrific. Just notice in the lower left-hand side of your screen is a little tab marked messages. Click on that and you'll be able to email in your questions to us, and we will get those questions to Dr. Klein and he'll be able to respond to them throughout the program today. Just be aware that whether you ask questions on site or online, that we are recording this for a video archive, for a video on demand program afterwards. So when you ask your question, your voice will be added to the program and you will make a contribution to the program in perpetuity. So again, welcome on to today's webcast, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. John Klein. Dr. Klein joined the Troy University faculty in 2000 as a professor of education, and he became the director of the Institute of Leadership Development in 2003. He's previously served as provost and the highest-ranking civilian employee at the United States Air Force's Air University at Maxwell. He also has completed the Federal Program for Senior Executives at the University of Virginia and the JFK Summer Program in International Security at Harvard University. I'm pleased to tell you that he is the recent 2017 recipient of the Algernon Sidney Sullivan Award as well. The Sullivan Award is presented to select colleges and universities throughout the United States, recognizing individuals for their excellence of character and humanitarian service. And by virtue of being here and talking with us today, Dr. Klein is demonstrating both of those qualities in abundance. We appreciate his contributions. Please join me in welcoming Dr. John Klein.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, if you've been watching the other two, then welcome back. If you haven't, well, welcome. So there we go. So in the first two, and I'll say something about them as I go today, and the first one was on communication and leadership. The next one was on leading people and leading processes. In other words, you need to do both. Be concerned about the job you're doing and the people that are doing it. And this last one is on leading positive change. And I think this is one that we all need to look at. We need to see what it takes to lead positive change. In the example I used last time, I actually mentioned the one about the most current one of a well-known organization that was refusing to change, and that's why they didn't continue, was how Sears has gone downhill, how Penny's has gone downhill, and we talked about that in just a minute. But you can find things that once were big and now have lost their power. Man, if you want to think about when I got my first smartphone, it was a BlackBerry. That was all there was. I was really something because I had a BlackBerry. Well, you know what happened to BlackBerry, so there we go. And it was probably because they didn't make some changes they needed to. One, I think, was probably because they insisted on having the keys you could touch rather than the touch one. I think that may have been one of the things that got them, only one of many. But let's get on with today, and I promise you I will not go overtime. I've managed to stay 10 minutes under the last two, so let's see if I can keep that going today. But I do welcome your questions, and I will finish on time no matter how many questions you ask me. Because if I can't answer them, I'll say I can't answer them, and then we'll move on. No, seriously, I'll give an answer to every one of your questions. So, leaders implementing positive change. This may seem like an uphill battle, and it really is if you're not ready to do it. But the key is, and there's an article that goes along with this one, and this article really tracks very closely what I'm saying. The two articles before had a lot of the same things in them, but I chose to go off in a different direction. This one very closely tracks some things that I say in that article. If I were choosing one article to read, it might be this one because it just really spells all these things out. But the key is to communicate, communicate, communicate. Now, if you've listened to me on the first two presentations, that doesn't surprise you, since I started out the first one to say that leaders must communicate. In fact, I said, if you can't communicate, don't try to lead. Communication cuts through everything. That's why I keep bringing it out again, servant leadership, doing things that serve the needs of others in the organization, cut across everything as I see leadership. So those things just kind of are woven throughout. Now, I do go back and say a few things here today that I said in the first two, just as I told you I would. I do that not because I've forgotten that I've said them. I do it not to fill time. I do it because I think it's very important to emphasize these things and show how they tie together. Now, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk briefly, but very importantly, about something, the distinction between change or transition. Then we're going to talk about very briefly, but it's kind of an interesting one, the lesson from the wilderness. And then we're going to talk about a model for leading change, and that's what we're going to spend most of our time on today, is a model or a way of looking at change, and then tie some things together in talking about transformational leadership. Transformation simply means change, to make some changes. And when you're making changes all the time, you should be doing positive transformation of others and the organization. So, change versus transition. I really had not thought much about this until I read about it someplace else some years ago, and there is a difference. Now, I don't know if you ever had a pair of glasses, I used to, that would transition when you go out into the sunlight. I didn't have to put the clip-ons I've decided to use now, but they transition. So inside they were clear, outside they would transition, so they were a sunglass. The only problem I found was sometimes when I was doing things in a spotlight, they would transition inside. And it looked like I was wearing sunglasses. And because I've often spoken under lights brighter than these, and that's when I'm younger, the bright light didn't bother me like it does now. But anyway, those glasses were a good illustration. You see, because change is what comes about, but transition is the process you must go through. Change is external. We are really talking about helping people make a transition to make the change come true. So, I'll say this 2 or 3 times. People don't resist change as much as they resist the transition of getting there. You see, in a transition, you're kind of an in-between. So if you're going from here to here, and I can't stay here because the ground's going to collapse under me, I have to get over there. In between, I'm walking whatever it takes to walk across. That's the transition period. In anything we do, we make a transition when we make a change. Life itself, for those of us that have lived a while, life itself has a lot of transitions in it and makes a lot of changes that we have to come about, but we have to make the transition. So think about that as being a transition period. You need to give people time to adjust to the change. When change is dropped on you just like this is when you panic. This is something to remember. Leaders need to prepare the followers for the change that comes about. I'll give a couple of examples that are also examples I mentioned in that little article. Again, I will mention these are not scholarly articles. These are just nice little articles to read. They're not the kind that you put down on your list of publications if you're trying to get promotion and tenure. But give time to adjust to the need to change. Sometimes we just need a time to think about it a little bit. You can't just drop it on people. Third, we need to know why embracing change is difficult. Now, we'll talk more about it, but essentially people think, can I make all the changes I need to in my transition period to adjust to the new change? Can I learn the new way of doing things? Can I learn the vocabulary I have to learn? Can I learn how to work in this kind of situation? So people have a little trouble embracing it when they feel that they can't. Normally, when they feel it's something easy that they can do, they are more welcoming towards change. And it is transitioning, not to change, it's a difficulty. Now, I have 5 P's, and I must confess that I stole the first of these 4 from a guy that's written on it. His name is William Bridges. I even cite him in the article so it doesn't look like I'm stealing something. I cite 2 people, Bridges and a guy named John Cotter, who I'll probably mention later. John Cotter wrote a book, I think it was 1996, I should have checked it. It was on leading change. It was probably the best single book that was ever written, I think even since that time perhaps, on leading change. So it was influential as I read it back then. My little article I wrote came out in, I think, 2008. It was right in that period someplace, 2007. I should have checked, shouldn't I? But that was when I was really thinking through all this stuff. about implementing change. Now, the 5 P's. These first 4 are his. People must know why. Why do we have to change? Because I said so is not very good. Even if you say because the upper people above me said so, that's a little better, but it's not good enough. You need to say, this is why the people above me said we have to do it. You must know there's a purpose. You don't change for no reason. We recently changed from Blackboard to, I can't think of the name of the new one, the online teaching thing. Isn't that funny? Canvas. From Blackboard to Canvas, but there was good reason given why. People knew it was coming. People knew they had to do the training because on such and such a date, we would go from Blackboard to Canvas. It was going to meet our needs better. That was why they were trying to explain it. I don't know all the reasons, but I did hear all the reasons, and it made a lot of sense to me. So if you're going to be using online teaching or going to using it in your classroom, no longer will we be using Blackboard, we'll be using Canvas. So there was a reason given, and the reason they showed us was because it was going to suit our needs and be more efficient and be easier to use, said our people that were implementing the change. So you see, we saw there was a purpose. Okay, we're going to have to change, and the reason is because we're going to something better, and it's going to help us. Had a reason. The picture. This is what it's going to be like. When you get here, and now I'm talking out of my element because I don't know that much about the new Canvas saying, but it was a kind of a saying, when we do this, you'll be able to do this easier. You'll be able to do this. Students will access better. On anything, if people see what the reasons are, the purpose, a picture, oh, when I get here, and here's how we'll do it. We'll give you a certain amount of time. We'll have these training sessions. You can get them online. You can come and sit here and get them. You can access them on various things. So we had a plan how to do it. And since Troy has so many courses online, Troy University taught online before it was the thing to do. Troy University took a lot of heat for going online. Some of those same places now are getting everything online because Troy is not just an online school, it's the same stuff that's taught on the ground. But the point is this, we knew how many people were going to have to get up to this. We knew that all the classroom teachers, many of them use it. So we had to provide enough training. Not we, but the people that did it. My part in helping us get there, one thing just to be positive about it, one thing all the people who are teaching online for me, if they had any questions, say, but this is great. I had to know my part. If I was going to get qualified, then I'd have to know my part to do that and being positive. Again, I said this morning, attitude is crucial. And as I said either this morning or the one right after lunch, whenever it was, I said that more people lose their jobs because of attitude problems than they do of competency. A good thing to remember. So attitude. So I added that positive one on there. So those are my 5 P's. Now, the lesson from the wilderness. It's going to take me a little bit here. Some of you will know this, some of you won't, but let me remind you or let me tell you. Years ago, a guy named Moses. You remember the story, if you ever read it or heard it or read it in your Bibles? You remember that Abraham went to the Promised Land. You remember things were going along well. You remember what happened when Joseph was born. You remember Israel had 12 sons. And the other brothers got very jealous of Joseph because he was the guy, he was the 11th son, the other one wasn't there yet. Joseph was the guy that the daddy loved. Joseph's daddy gave him a coat of many colors. Joseph's daddy thought his son could do nothing wrong. Well, the brothers got kind of jealous of Joseph. So Joseph was going down to see him. They thought this is our chance. I'm kind of abbreviating the story. So they're going to throw him into a pit. Well, then one of the guys got the bright idea we ought to save him and we ought to sell him as a slave. So they did. He was taken down to Egypt. He got into a very good family, Potiphar, a big high-class official there. And Potiphar's wife said, that Joseph is one good-looking hunk. So she took kind of a liking to him and tried to lure him on, and he refused, and she got mad, and she was spurned by him, and so she told her husband Potiphar, Joseph tried to come on to me, and I stopped him, just actually. So Joseph got thrown in the prison. Later on, because Joseph interpreted one of Pharaoh's dreams, as the story goes, he was risen to a position, he became prime minister. He was something special. Now, he could always foresee what was going on. He could always read these dreams. He told the king what was going to happen. We're going to have some good years where we can harvest a lot, and then we're going to have some years of famine, so let's save up. The king said, well, okay, it sounds good to me. So they did. Meanwhile, things went bad up in Joseph's home country of Israel. And so what happened was they had to go off looking for, they heard there was a lot of food down there that had been stored up by the Egyptians, and they were selling it to people, so they went down to buy it. Joseph recognized these were his brothers. They didn't recognize him. Make a long story short, they all finally moved down to Egypt. But after a while, through the centuries, they really fell out of favor. They became slaves. So they were going to be moving out of there. And Moses, who had risen to quite a position because he'd been adopted by this Pharaoh's daughter. He was in good shape. He'd had all the best training, all the best education. He was one bright dude, but he never forgot his heritage, and one time he saw somebody beaten up on one of his relatives by distance, Hebrews children. He killed the guy that was doing it, and then he had to escape. So he goes away and wanders around for 40 years and finally gets the call, you're going to go back and rescue my people. And Joseph said, not me, I can't do that. Can't speak very good. He said, well, you got a brother Aaron, he's a good talker, so you just trust him. To make a long story short, you may remember the story. It's in literature. Plagues. Finally, Pharaoh let the children go. The plagues were magnified. I mean, first it was just a lot of flies. And then the river, the Nile, turned to blood. Finally got to the place where the firstborn was going to die. Well, when that happened, Pharaoh finally gave up, let him go. Magnified the plagues. In other words, the thing is, things have gotten bad. You better do something. Better do something. It was an ending place. They crossed the Red Sea, and once you cross it, there's no turning back. So once you make the change, you have to have it so well established that there is no going back. It's the way we're doing it now. We're sticking with canvas. That's where we are now. So you mark an ending place. You essentially say we've got until now to get ready for it, so let's get all ready. We'll come back to this. Some people are going to murmur, oh, it's better back where we used to have it kind of stuff. But be ready for that. Be ready for that. And they were all wanting to talk to Moses. He couldn't handle it. Now this is the first great example of delegation. His father-in-law says, you got to delegate your other leaders so they've each got people they can have access to. Really, I think that's that's me saying that. First example of delegation I can read about that really was successful. So they were able to talk. Remember that one. People have to be able to vent their things to somebody. They have to be able not to just be sitting out there and not talk. You've got to let people talk. We talked about getting feedback, talked about communication. And there are opportunities. Once you get to the neutral zone and you can't go back, even if you're wandering around in a wilderness for 40 years and you can't go back, there are some opportunities for growth. So that's where anybody can lead when things are going well. Anybody can lead when you get over here. It takes real leadership while you're making a change. That's the point here. It takes real leadership while the change is going on. That's why we're talking about leadership here. It takes real leadership to lead during times of change and be successful. And again, I'll tell you some instances where it was very successful. But you can't go till the right time. Sometimes you try to change too quickly. So you set everything up so now's the time. We can make this transition. We can make this change. Everybody's ready. Everybody's on board. But that leadership in the neutral zone is special. I don't know if I came up with this originally or read it someplace. I can't find it anyplace else after I wrote about it, before I wrote about it, but I'm sure I wasn't smart enough to figure this one out. I'm sure somebody else did this. But I still think it's a pretty good example that shows leaders have always had to implement positive change if they were to be successful. Now, here's my model. This is in the book. This is my model after I read, and there's 8 steps in the one I told you about, in the classic one. But I came up with these 7, but these are based on experience. These are not based on what I read. These are based on experience. Kotter's were very good. It's just these are the ones that I could talk about because I saw them where they worked well and when they didn't. and 7 was the number I came up with. And that little essay I wrote is only about 3 pages long or so, and I address each one of those, not quite to the detail I will here today. And I'll spend more time on some points than on the others. But I do have time for questions. I do have time as we go along for questions, and I will get us done in plenty of time. Now, address and assess human concerns. This goes back to what we said earlier. You've got to know what's going on with the people. It can't be so, and this is where managers get in trouble, and many leaders do too. They're so concerned about getting the job done, they don't address the concerns of people. You will pay later if you don't. To hurry to get something done and not addressing the human concerns, you're going to pay for it in your organization. You really are. And I see it happen all the time. I see it happen with large organizations. I need to tell you a little bit about what I did to show you I did have some leadership background. I'm not bragging at all. So I left the University of Missouri in 1975. It was a really good situation. I'd just been promoted. The next year I'd have an associate with tenure. And I knew that, and that was hanging out there, but it happened, but I was hard to leave. But I had this opportunity come up that I only alluded to, but let me tell you more about it. I had an old undergraduate advisor. His name was Robert Underhill. He was an encourager. I told somebody out in the hall a while ago, I remember once when I started doing my public speaking, and he was teaching a basic speech class, even though he was a chairman there. He was teaching a class, and my neck would start to get red up the side. And I said, Dr. Underhill, when I get talking, my neck gets red. He said, don't worry. It happens to so many people. It will go away. I never worried about it. It went away. You know, everything he did, oh, you can do that, John. And so it was an encouragement. Well, he helped me a lot, so I'd been off. He's my undergraduate advisor. I graduated clear back from undergraduate school in about 67, I guess. And now it was 1975. Maintained some contact. I got this phone call. He said, John, did you get my letter? I said, well, yes, I did, but I didn't really quite understand it. He said, well, it's that position at Air University, and you ought to apply for it. I said, what is an Air University? Couldn't go easily online and find out things then. He said, oh, I should have told you, that's the Air Force University. They do this, 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 and this, and they have all this. I said, I never was in the military. He said, you're the right one for it, really. Well, I sort of half-heartedly filled stuff out and sent it off thinking nothing would happen. They told me there had been 100 people apply for it, and I thought, well, that took care of that. It was, this was just before Christmas, this all happened. It was right after the first year they called me and said, we'd like you to come for an interview. Okay. So I went down for an interview, and they told me, now we're interviewing 3, but these other people are highly qualified, but you should be thankful you got into 3. I said, thank you. They said, now it'll be 2 or 3 weeks before you hear anything. I had the interview. I went home. The next day they called me and offered me the job. I don't know why yet. I always felt my advisor, who was a retired Air Force colonel, knew the right people, and it helped a little bit. That's all I could think, my old mentor, my advisor. I said, well, it's January, and I'm going to wait till the kids are out of the school, if that would be okay. They said, we honor that. That's fine. So I went down, and the rest is history. I went down to be the communication skills advisor. Here's a point. If you're a pretty good communicator, you'll get promoted ahead of people that are probably better qualified. I look at every one of mine and I see people when I was promoted that I thought were better qualified on paper and everything. So I really moved quite quickly. You probably don't understand what GS positions are. I went as a 14, became a 15. That was in 75. In 86, I was promoted to a SES, Senior Executive, flag rank, General Officer equivalent, and it just kept on going. And then I'd started as an advisor. I learned probably as much about leading when I was advising as when I was a leader, because you had to influence people. But I began to have things work for me. All the academic programs, all the promotion and tenure of civilian personnel came to me. Pretty much what I finalized was what the boss, the 3-star general, went with. I don't think he ever went against what I did on my final conclusion. He just trusted me. Had a lot of things that directly reported to me. I mentioned some of those last time. So I wound up having quite a few people work for me and quite a few other people. When you figure we had 50,000 resident students in all of our courses and 150,000, this was before online, but it was distance learning stuff, I had a little responsibility there. and I made a lot of mistakes. Fortunately, I had good people. By the way, here's another thing. Always get people better than you. One of my big successes is that I've always hired people better than me. How else do you think I could be ahead of all of the IT stuff? I don't know anything about IT. I got the right colonel in there. How else do you think I could be I got the right people in there. They let me have a lot to say, which is a little bit unusual for the military that they let a civilian do that. All of my life. Why do you think all the teachers I hire are so good that they move on to something else? Well, that's the way it is. They move to a different position of more responsibility. Proves you're hiring the right kind of people. Now, I digress, but I meant to. So what would be the concerns of followers? You try to be concerned with what the followers are all about. You try to know what's going to concern them. That's one of the first things you have to do. Now, we covered these the last session. We talked about time. We talked about tools. We talked about guidance, policies, facilities, training. We said that if you don't provide these as a leader, you're interfering with what's going to happen. Now this comes, nowhere does this become more important than when you're trying to deal with change. If you're trying to get people on board, don't go short on the stuff they need, because that'll slow down the change that goes on. That's why I mentioned that a second time. Now here's a big one. You have to demonstrate strong leadership throughout. Let me tell you two examples. One, back in the mid-90s, that was when contracting first started with the military. All these jobs that were internal, they started contracting them out. Well, they hadn't really let people know about it at the base where I was, and the others had been pretty much the same way. It was just something that this is what we're going to do. There was a little bit of knowing it was in the wind, but not knowing what had been happening and decided. Now, I think what this did to civilian employees that suddenly found out their job was going to be eliminated and it was going to be contracted out. They had neglected to prepare them. Now they tried to make up for it, and they had plans to do it. They were trying to get all the people who were retirement eligible to retire. Turned out some of them would retire and hire back on with a contract, and it was actually a very good thing, but they didn't prepare people that way. So suddenly these people, and they had the whole base was in an uproar. Not just the civilians, but the military thought this isn't right to treat civilians this way and not let them know what's happening. It was not handled very good. The transition would have been much smoother. Since they knew it, they should have let people know that this was coming down as a governmental directive and we were going to adjust it, but here's how we're going to take care of our people. They should have called in all the people in leadership positions that were down lower and explained it so they would be on board. Now I could talk more about this. Let me tell you one and take a little bit more time, one where it was done right. I mentioned this very briefly in the article. I want to say the year was about 2005, may have started in 2004. We used to be called Troy State University. Now let me tell you, there was a Troy State in the main campus of Troy State in Montgomery, Alabama, a Troy State south of Troy in Dothan, a Troy State in Phoenix City, Alabama, which is over near the Georgia side, and there was Troy State that was online and distance. Each one had a president. There was a president of each of those colleges, and each one had an academic dean. So let's say there was an academic dean for education on this campus, and this campus, and this campus. Well, it was a kind of a loose confederation. There was a chancellor, who's the one that's still there, that was over it all, but still, they were pretty much operating on their own. It even was a place where, and this still happens some places, and I could give some examples, but not at Troy, where if you took a course on this campus, it would not necessarily transfer to this campus. I can tell you some universities that exist that way now, but I won't mention any. So this isn't right. So a student transfers and loses credit. To make a long story short, there was this master plan of one great university. We called it OGU. So when this all came about, everybody was on board. First of all, everybody knew it was going to happen. Second, everybody was told you will not lose a job, you will not lose a penny of your salary, it will stay the same. Your job may transfer so that no longer are you the dean on this campus, but you'll be an associate dean with this senior dean being over you. But you will be an associate dean still on that campus. So nothing's happening. It's transparent, but we're consolidating. Every course from every campus will transfer. Every course that's online will transfer. Everything is pulling together. So to many people, when they saw the change go from Troy State University to Troy University, they thought, oh, big name change, just so it sounds better. No, it reflected something bigger. Now, everybody was involved. You think, well, sure, the deans were, the department chair may have been. No, I'm talking about the faculty. No, I'm talking about the secretary. I'm talking about every staff member was made to feel that he or she had a part. It went so smoothly. It was celebrated as we went. It was celebrated when it ended with a big celebration. And I never heard any complaints. Do you know why? Because the leadership, and I'm talking about our Chancellor Jack Hawkins, but I'm talking about all the people, the board of trustees, all the the deans, the associate deans, everybody was on board. Everybody was handling leadership. Now, here's the big lesson. When you are leading something, get everybody on board. When you are leading something, get other people that are leading all their areas. If you take nothing else away today, you're going to take something that fails many times because people don't get everybody on board. Big lesson. So leadership must be throughout the organization, not just at the top. That's why I say managers must have some leadership in them. Followers must have some leadership. People say, well, I'm not a leader. I said, yeah, students will say this. I said, do you have a little brother or sister? Yes. Does that brother or sister look up to you? Yes. I said, you're a leader. Do you influence anybody? You're a leader. So everybody has to assume some leadership. I don't really know anybody that doesn't have some leadership. I really don't. Let me sit down and talk with them a while, and they'll decide that maybe they do have some leadership responsibility. Building trust. This is so key. It's so important to build trust. Give credit, accept blame. For a leader to say, well, my people decided that, come on here, you're responsible. Show the character, competence, and confidence. But I want to say something about what if trust is broken? Can it be regained? Well, here's how you do it. These are just some I came up with clear back in 2005, I guess. If I do something to break your trust and I deny it, and you know I did it, and I know I did it, it's better to say, I'm sorry, I broke trust. I have to admit it. The hardest thing for leaders to do is to admit they're wrong. The best thing for leaders to do is to admit they're wrong. Besides, everybody knows it. And determine why. Okay, I say, why did this happen? I mean, let's talk about it. Just you and I talk about it because you know what happened, you feel that way. And so we talk about it. So we got it all figured out. And I said, I didn't know that would, oh golly, I didn't even know that. I'm sorry, will you forgive me? You know, most people say, yeah, don't let it happen again. I say, well, I don't want to. That's the whole deal. I don't want to. I did. Mea culpa. Me bad. I'm bad. I did it. Okay. I accept responsibility. I notice when you start to do this, people will say, well, it wasn't all your fault. I've noticed most everybody that's reasonable will say, oh, come on. We all do it and it wasn't just your fault. And I say, no, but I don't want it to happen again. What can I do to make it up to you? Sometimes people say, oh, just take me out to dinner. I mean, a lot of people will say that. You know, some of them will say, you've already done it. Some of the unreasonable ones on a whole lot of money or something, but most people in your organization really won't. They really won't. Now, I don't want it to happen again. You know, let's do something. So if you see something happening, I need you to tell me. That's one of the things you do. I need you to inform me. Please let me know. So like I said last time, you've got to have people you can listen to, people even though it hurt your feelings. You kind of hold it in, go in and cry a little bit. And then think about it and say, gosh, I'm glad I got that person here. Well, spreading the leadership down and making sure you don't break trust, but if you do, don't just try to keep on, and you can't go on. People won't forget it. People won't forget it, and most people will forgive you if you come and say, I'm bad, I did it. Now, you have to come there. We're going to get into this stuff in a minute here. You're going to clearly communicate the vision, and here's where I get into the heart of it in just a little bit here. So, making sure you have a strategic vision. Now, Here's what it is. Vision to implementation. This is what we're talking about. You must know where you're going. You need to prepare to make the journey. I just thought this was cute. Sometimes the journey's uphill, but that does look like it kind of appealing, and go see what that looks like back there. Prepare to make the journey and lead others. So you can't go into it without some preparation. You must prepare. Preparation is key. So, vision implementation. Driving in the fog. In just a moment here, I'm going to show you a video that will really help bring this home. But sometimes it's foggy. If it's too foggy, people don't know where they're going. You've got to get the fog cleared away. That's why communication becomes important. So you look to the future, but you've heard them say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Or if you don't know where you're going, you'll get there. Or if you don't know where you're going, you won't get there. So you have to know where you're going. Gee, I was out, I'm staying down at the Hotel George, and I just thought I'd walk up here so I'd see where it was last night, and it was easy walk up here. Then I thought I'd find a new way back. Okay, those of you from Washington know what happened. I got in the wrong street. I was too proud to pull out my Google Maps and find it. Well, after a while, after I'd been walking for a long time, I did, and it said I was 8 miles away, or eight minutes away. I thought, well, okay, I shouldn't be that far. I looked at it, thought I knew what, kept going, pulled it out. Now I was 9 minutes away. Pretty quick, I was 8 minutes away, but I was someplace else. Finally, I just got the thing and followed it, and it took me back. Well, I didn't know where I was going, that's all. I knew where I was going, but I didn't know how to get there. Now, what is a vision statement but your preferred destination? The vision is your preferred, it's as simple as that. It's where you want to go. Okay, I've got a vision I'll be in my own bed back in Montgomery, Alabama in about 10 or 11 hours maybe. It's a vision of where I'm going. What you want to achieve. I want to finish up here in good stead today and make it to the airplane, hope it leaves on time and all that stuff. Where you want to go and what you want to accomplish. Now, what does strategic, long-range visioning really entail? This is not from the same book. I put Klein here because I wrote it. I forgot I left that on there. But this is something else I wrote. I said to have a vision statement, to communicate that statement, you must have a vision that's group specific, specific to your organization, specific to the people that are going to go. It can't be just one you pull off and don't adapt, so it has to be group specific. It has to be attractive. Make it as attractive as you can. Hey, this is how it's going to be when we get there. Hey, this is how we're going to gain if we do it. Hey, we're going to stay in business, we're going to increase sales if we do this. Okay? Challenging. Well, it has to be a little of a challenge. Most of us like a challenge if we see it's something we can accomplish. It's not. Now, you won't just slide over. You got to work on it a little bit, but man, is it going to be worth it. It has to be realistic. It has to be attainable. To make one that's unattainable, you're headed for disaster. You're headed for failure. And is it strategic? Now, we've got a couple classics. This first one I'm just going to say something about. The next one we're going to show you a little YouTube on. You've seen this. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense. Yes, they spell defense that way. I know it's a misspelling, but that's what it says. That's the way they used to. Promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. That was a vision. That was a vision. It really was. Now, they went ahead and added some stuff that would make that realistic. Here's another one. Think about this. This is Martin Luther King, Jr. Happened just down the road here a little bit.
Be able to sing with new meaning, my country tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's cry. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Well, let me ask you a question. Well, I will in just a minute, but let me say I'm blessed to live in Montgomery, Alabama, and I met so many people who were icons of that, and they just became friends, and I didn't really realize how they fit in. In later time, I found out a lot of these people were people that were so important, people that were on the march, people that were instrumental in making things happen. So it's been kind of fun down there, really. It really has. So I feel like I'm right down there where it all happened, where that Freedom March went from Selma to Montgomery, knowing people that were on that. Black people, white people, all kind of people. It's great kind of stuff. So it's been kind of fun. Now, did his vision meet the vision criteria? Was it group specific? Yes. It was actually specific to all Americans. We think about it just African Americans. It was actually to all Americans. Some people don't realize that. But the more I've studied, the more I know. It was specific. Oh yes, he was concerned with his African American brothers, but he also, and sisters, but he also, it was specific. United States of America. Was it attractive? Well, it sure was to the African Americans and to some of the white folks who finally come around. Maybe it was kind of a shock for some, but yes, it was attractive to the people that had to really make this happen. It was. Was it challenging? Oh, you bet it was. We're not there yet. I just love it that some of my favorite students are the African American students. I just do. But some are from other countries too. Some believe differently than I do, but I still love them. Some of those just old redneck white kids from down in the country, I love them too. But it was challenging. Was it realistic? Seems to be. We've made a lot of changes. We've made them starting before you were born, I guarantee you, and they just keep on coming. And sure, we see problems, but when you look and see how it was, it must have been realistic. We're on our way, not quite there. Strategic, you bet it was. It was where we're going, not what we're going to do tomorrow. Where do we want to be? Let me show you another example. Well, let me tell this first. Here's what it takes. Now, I can go into it a lot deeper. Yes, I could teach strategic planning, but really, if you haven't done much of it, and you look at this is clear and simple and all it really takes. Really. So, you start with where we are today and where we want to be. Now, so you've got the vision of where you want to be. And you have a mission that tells what it is you're really going to do. And I'm going to talk more about this. But it takes a plan to make it happen. It takes goals and objectives. I'm going to talk about this a little bit. So if you have a vision, if you get the mission that'll satisfy that vision, and if you have a plan to make it happen with all the goals and objectives and things along the way, that's strategic. Now, here's a sample. This was a guy, he didn't really decide this till he was halfway through his undergraduate, but he really had this, didn't write it all down. His vision was to become a successful tenured college professor. He was talking to professors and found out what tenure was and found out a lot about it, was way ahead of other kids on knowing what it was. So really he kind of came up with this, didn't really write this all down, but this was there. His mission was to attain the necessary education and experience. What you're going to do, what's your reason for doing it? He had to have a reason, so he would. His goals were, at that time, were to earn a bachelor's and a master's and a PhD. That was his goal. And he wanted to then know that he had to demonstrate these three things that some of us in academia know about so much. You must do teaching, research, and service. Pretty much you have to do those three, most places. He wanted to avoid debt. He almost did. He wanted to avoid debt, complete the 3 degrees in 8 years later, and be tenured 7 years after that. That was his max that he had set out for him. Sound pretty reasonable from everything he learned. His plan was to study, find mentors. He early on remembered, look how important it was to know who mentors were and who could help him. That's how he learned all this stuff. Earn scholarships and improve his writing skill. So you've got the conditions, you've got the level of performance and measures. Now let me ask you, did I changed it. This was Klein. It's the same thing I said about King. Did Dr. Klein meet the criteria? Yeah. Was it group specific? I was the group. It was specific to me. Was it attractive? Doggone attractive when I decided I wanted to teach at the college level. Was reason. Was it challenging? You bet it was. You bet it was. If you've gone through your degrees, you understand. Was it realistic? It must have been. I accomplished it. Was it strategic? Yes, it was. It was long range. So I started early on making strategic plans. Now they change. By the way, one of the things I teach in the capstone class that we teach down there, I teach students how to have core values. I've got my own. I always liked the Air Force. Integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. That accomplished what they wanted to do. And the Army has some great ones. The other services do. Most businesses and corporations do. You should write them down. You should think about writing your own. I make students do it. I make them have a vision for their life the best they can, a mission, the same kind of thing here, but just go as far as you can. And some of them say that's one of the best things they learned. That and writing thank you notes are the two best things they learned. And there's some other things too. So, okay. Vision was to become successful, yes. Mission, yes. Goals, yes. Avoid debt, almost did. Complete my 3 degrees in 8 years. Actually, I did them in 6.5. I was a little bit motivated. Tenured, I actually made that in 5. But anyway, and then I stepped away from it. The point is, I had some actions, study, finding mentors, learning from other people. Oh, I can't stress enough. I don't think, maybe only in recent years have I kind of run out of mentors, but I'm telling you, I had mentors for a long time that I could turn to and ask questions. And so you need to reach back. And the one thing I found is most people, as busy as you guys are, as you women are, you probably, if the right kind of young person would come to you and want some help and mentoring, you'd probably do it. And that student, that young person, would gain from it. But you need to also keep finding mentors as long as you can that can help you, that can open doors, that can network, that can tell you stuff to do and not to do, can give you some warning about things. Just a very important thing as I'm talking about here. So the conditions, yes, the conditions, the level of performance, and the measures are all there. Now, in just a second, or just a couple minutes, we're going to see a video. But one of the things I think is important if you want to really have good visioning is think, oh, you went a little too far. That's okay. You got to think outside the box. I'll come back to it. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
I was marooned on an island for 5 years with this package. And I swore that I would deliver it to you because I work for FedEx.
That's very admirable. Thank you.
Hey, by the way, what's in the package?
Nothing really. Just a satellite phone, GPS locator, fishing rod, water purifier, and some seeds. Just silly stuff. Thank you again. You keep up the good work.
Well, that was really thinking inside the box, but I thought it would help you to remember we've got to think outside the box too. In other words, sometimes we're constrained. We can get other people to help us think outside the box. We can get other people that come at it a different way. We can get other people that have some ideas. And to really be a good leader, think outside the box. You don't have to do everything that's outside the box. You don't have to do everything that's inside the box. So it takes some outside the box thinking. You must know what's inside, though, before you start thinking outside. What I'm saying is, you better know your organization, you better know your people, you better know your policies. You can't just let other people do them. If you're the leader, you better know all this stuff. You better know the constraining things, you better know the law, all the things you need to know. Then you're ready to think outside the box and see what you can make apply. It's a weakness of a lot of us. We don't know enough what is going on right now. Especially as we get in leadership, we lose touch with what's going on. You can't do it. You can't do it. You've got to stay in touch. Then you can think outside the box as well as inside the box. Now, I think you've seen these before, so I won't take much about them. They're kind of popular. I like them, the SMART objectives. Is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it achievable? Is it relevant? And what will be the time period? I put that in because I still think it's a good thing to think about. Those, and having the objectives that follow these are really prerequisite to implementation. I just thought it was cute when this guy came up with this years ago, and I just included it, although I won't talk much about it now. Now, you have to create an enabling environment. We already talked about it's all about others. I already told you what my dad said about being in the world to help others. That stayed with me. That's been one of the things he taught me that stayed with me longer and longer. I haven't always done it, but I keep coming back to it. I'm glad he implanted that in me. As I get older especially, it becomes more and more important, which is why I more and more give emphasis to servant leadership, which helps others, which by the way helps the organization, which by the way helps you in your leadership role. So we're in the world to help others. Some things we've really said: know your people, help your people. Those 5 P's: purpose, picture, plan, part, and positive. Identify practical methodologies that make it work. That's where we come down to when we're saying about having the objectives, having the plan, having the goals. That's so it can be measurable, so it's practical, and you reassure your people. You've got to continually be in a reassurance mode. You have to keep saying, I know you can do it. We're going to give you the training. We wouldn't invest the training in you if we didn't know you could do it. If I didn't know you'd really work at this, that also makes you work harder. I've told you I could. I said, I'm investing money in training for you. It's worth it. I need you. You have to reassure people. No, this isn't going to hurt. It's just going to make you be able to do more. No, this isn't going to hurt your personal chances for growth and promotion. Actually, it will enhance them. But make sure you're telling the truth, but it will. So you see, you have to enable your people. You have to create that, and it comes down to what? Communication. I've said this about a dozen times now. If you can't communicate, don't try to lead. Communication cuts through all of this. Now, celebrate success. Let me tell you something I learned from the military. They're always having little celebrations of things. They always have a quarterly Airman of the Quarter, Officer of the Quarter, Civilian of the Quarter, this person that did this. They have little awards things, and they have a lot of food to eat out there. That is not time wasted. I found out the time and the expense for that is more than paid back. It brings people together. Something I said I don't have time to talk about. It builds community. It makes people part of the organization. It makes them feel like they belong. So as you're doing things, I will tell you, even as we were doing that change at Troy to one great university, we were having little celebrations along the way. We had a big one at the end. It was something. Tux and everything, you know, big stuff. But we had little ones along the way. And little organizations had little things along the way in their planning sessions. I even like to go to the weekly staff meetings. I'll go to one tomorrow. It's just in the College of Education because it's just for the department chairs and a couple old guys like me that sit around there. What I like is somebody always brings goodies. So we have a good time together. We had a retreat recently, just a day-long retreat where we're doing things in our strategic planning. We got together at the boss's house for supper. Kind of nice. I mean, you think that doesn't pull things together? I mean, we haven't accomplished the plan. We even got our new plan, but hey, I'm going to work on this. I get fed. So you celebrate as you go. Everybody enjoys celebrations. Now, here's something I want to say that kind of fits here. From vision to implementation, how do you start a movement? How do you start a movement? Watch this.
learned a lot about leadership and making a movement. Then let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes, and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is overglorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
I've watched that dozens of times. I never tire of watching it. You know what? I always like it. Wish I could still do that. Okay. Well, everybody was involved. That's one lesson there too. Followers bring on more followers. So it's important. So think about you as a leader. Now think about you as a leader. And again, although he said everybody can't be a leader, yes, we are leaders in one way or another. Here's 3 things a leader must know. A leader must know where to go. A leader must know how to get there. And a leader must know how to get others to follow. Now, from my experience, I have found I always could get help for the first one, knowing where to go. I wasn't smart enough all the time, but I had people that were. I could always get a plan and get people to help me know how to get there. But if I'm the leader, I'm the one that has to get people to follow. Other people can't do it for me. They can help me, but they can't do it for me. I'm the one that has to listen. I'm the one that has to be the master encourager. I'm the one that has to communicate. I have to do all these things. I have to energize people. If they see no energy, it doesn't mean you may not be quite as, I'm a little bit energetic when I get going, but you may be more subdued, but you still are showing that energy. It can be a quiet energy. Some of the best leaders I know are not terribly outgoing, but you can tell that they are dedicated. You can tell that they are sincere. You can tell that they are ready. You can tell that they mean business. So a leader has an important role of getting others to follow you. You have to then institutionalize change in the culture. This is really the last step. If you don't institutionalize it, people will be heading back again. You've got to make it part of the culture. That's one thing the final celebration does. That's one thing that you keep going back and investigating. You say, we made this change. How's it going? Are there some things we should fine tune? Remember, continual process improvement? Are there some things we could fine tune here to make it a little bit better? In other words, make sure people are with it till it becomes a way of life. That's what happened when Troy State University became Troy University. They kept looking and making some fine tunings. I mean, it's been so long now, nobody even thinks back. It doesn't matter. But for a while, they were careful to make sure that people weren't wanting to slip back. And they made it so positive that nobody wanted to. So you have to institutionalize it. And one way is to be a transformational leader. Now, I haven't said much about the difference here, but I want to take a little bit of time and talk about the difference between transformational and transactional. Those terms might well be familiar to you. They really might, especially if you go all the way back to some of the early leadership theories and the early social theories and Theory X and Theory Y and a lot of things. You can kind of begin to see what I'm talking about here. So, a transactional leader, primarily, and too many people are this way, it's all straightforward. You do this and you get reward. If you don't, you get punished. People sometimes think that's the military. It really isn't. I mean, there is chain of command. There is a lot of stuff. But I'm telling you, it's more than this. I know from having worked with all the services. So it's not just the first sergeant barking out orders. There's more to it. I've been around. Trust me. Those who have been in the military for a while certainly understand what I'm talking about. A transactional, it's all about the transaction that's going on here. Now, I did say leadership is a transaction, but I'm using the word differently there. I'm talking about transactional leadership, reward and punishment. Everything is strictly by chain of command. Now, I think you have to go through a chain of command, don't get me wrong. However, one of the things I found, again, as I told you earlier, was I would allow people that were ranked quite a bit below me, if they had something to say, they could do it with their boss's knowledge of what was going on. That was fine. But they knew that they had access to me. And if the boss wanted to come along, if that's the way they wanted to do it, that was okay too. I just most often the boss said, no, you just talk to him. Dr. Klein, you just talk to him. And if there's anything I need to know, let me know. But I never tried to shut the person out. But still, everything didn't have to necessarily go through a chain, which takes an awfully long time. Now, I know those of us that have worked in government realize a lot of things has to go through a chain that takes a long time. But I'm talking about the effective leaders trying to get information from other people all the time. Going back to our wilderness example, I got a pretty good idea that Moses was getting some information without chain of command. I have a pretty good idea as I read into it. There was some few things people were telling him. Oh, certainly he made Joshua was one of the persons he was mentoring. Caleb was one of the persons he's mentoring. But I have a feeling some of his other stuff came from some other places, if you look at it closely. Focus on money and simple reward. Well, money's good, but I'm telling you, it's not everything. I wouldn't be teaching in college if it were everything, I guarantee you. My friend and my boss, Jack Hawkins, says, busy people are happy people, and our people are deliriously happy. I said, you're right, you're right. But you know, there's got to be more than just the money reward. That's why if you're in a job you don't like, you're just looking for something else. Sometimes you'll take a little cut if you just have something that's more fun, something you feel like you're making a difference. Transactional says it's all money and simple reward. By the way, that works best when there's a very tight job market. When there isn't a very tight job market, and guess who you lose? Your best people. Your best people. Maybe you weren't showing appreciation. Maybe you weren't giving them some breaks on things. Maybe you weren't making things available to them that you could have. It's not just about money and reward. Little attention to the social and emotional factors. Well, I'll be careful. I'll have to go into the whole element of emotional leadership, but I'm not going to. And emotional personality things. It's not only the intellect, but the emotions. Emotional intelligence, in other words. I could talk about that, but I'm sure you all know more about it than I do probably back there, those ones at the other side of the camera. I'm not talking about you. Jason, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the people that are watching, but you may too. It may work as long as the demand exceeds the skill. Again, I was kind of proud of that. So many of those I've made them get longer and longer and longer, which really is effective when I can show each point as I can. But now, transformational leadership. You have to have a passion. You have to have a sincerity. You have to have a passion and sincerity about the subject, whatever you're dealing with, about the other people, and about yourself. Transformational leaders are passionate. They're involved. They do it. They like it. Maybe a lot of work, but they're getting some benefits out of it. They're getting a good feeling. And it creates mutual trust. In other words, it's not be, okay, you did a job, here's your money. Okay, you didn't, penalty. Instead, we talk. Instead, I find out. For some people, different kinds of things are rewarding to people. If you understand people, you know sometimes it's simple stuff that really is a no cost and all you have to do to people. Which is why it's good to recognize good work. Which is why, as I said, the military does a good job when they have all these little ceremonial things where they reward people for good work. They don't reward people that didn't do it. They don't say these people are better, but they say this person stood out this quarter because this person did such and such. He encourages and motivates others. The transformational leader is encouraging. We talked about the importance of encouragement and motivation in the last presentation. Transformational leaders take that on as a very important responsibility. They sell the vision and lead the charge. When we're talking about strategic thinking, other people have to help the leader, but she or he has to be the person that's leading the charge. After all, that's what a leader is all about. That's, after all, if you're at a university, you got the president, you've got the vice presidents, you got the deans, you got the department chairs, you've got a structure, but it has to come from the top down. And it has to keep on going down. The leader must sell the vision and lead the charge. This is the whole last presentation. Balance attention to the processes and people. We spent a whole session on that. Implements positive change and enables the transition. We're going back to what I said was most important. You have to enable the transition so the change can take place. That's your role if you're a transformational leader. Comes down to demonstrating service to others in the organization. All kind of ties back, doesn't it? I told you these were all interwoven. None of them would say something the other one didn't. They would just reinforce. I built it that way for today, knowing that these were the things I was going to emphasize. Now look at my model again. Assess and address the human concerns. This is what we've talked about the people. Don't get anything done without the people. Demonstrate strong leadership throughout. It takes leadership all the way, not just at the top. If you want it to be successful, it takes leadership all the way, through all the lieutenants, through everybody you've got below you. And you may be one of the lieutenants, and somebody above you better be doing this so it comes down to you. Trust. Told you how important it was to build trust and quickly acknowledge if trust has been broken, talk about it. Hiding it never works. Talking about it usually works. Communicate the vision. Man, that's what this is all about. Create the enabling environment to make it happen. These things all just kind of meld in together. Celebrate success as you go. Oh, celebrate at the end, but keep celebrating little successes as you go. It's important to keep celebrating little successes. Just like when you were in school. You celebrated when you got a good grade point one semester. You didn't wait to the end. Maybe you went out and celebrated when you did better on a test than you thought you might. Those little celebrations reinforce the fact we want success. I'm celebrating success. Implement and institutionalize change in the culture. Well, I couldn't make that one go this way like the rest of them did, but those are the things that I said and the things I would use to tie this together. Now, the key, communicate, communicate, communicate. Some other things just to think about that I thought I would just throw in, and these will be on your, if you watch this thing again, don't become complacent. If you become complacent, you won't change. That's why companies go out of business. That's why organizations fail. That's why they falter. They become complacent. You cannot become complacent. Know who your competitors are if there are competitors out there. This doesn't apply in every case, but if there's a competitor, you better know what the competitor's doing. It does apply with retail sales. You better know your competitor. Don't assume your change will last. Change is not final because things change. Some people think, oh, we made a change. We're okay. We'll keep looking and see what's going on in the horizon. Take a look at your vision. Take a look at your mission. Do this regularly. That's why companies come up with 5-year plans. They come up again. They don't wait and say, well, it's a 5-year plan. I guess that'll serve the rest of the time I'm here. Well, even if it will serve the rest of the time, you got to think about who your successors are. Processes must often change. We've talked about that so much. Continuous process improvement. What Deming and others talked about. Remember, the rules may change, therefore you may have to change. I don't have to give you examples. You can think when rules have changed and you had to make adjustments. You can say, we've always done it this way. I'm sorry, the rules won't allow you to do it that way now, so change to fit the rules. Can't fight it, so you change. This is why companies get in consultants, give a fresh look at what's going on. Get a fresh look. Even somebody from another part of the organization can come and say, we're doing this, what do you think about this? That looks pretty good, Fred, but you know, you might think about this. We're doing this over here. Okay, Sheila, good. I will take that into consideration. Let people know that change will enhance performance, increase performance. This change is for better performance. So we perform better as an organization, so you perform better as an individual, so we're all happier. Change benefits you and it benefits the organization. If people know that it'll benefit them and the organization, you'll get them on board. When they think it benefits the organization and hurts them, they're more reticent, although some of us have been through situations where we're willing to give to help the whole organization. Keep addressing not only the process interference now, but what could be the future ones. As technologies change, as times change, as rules change, as laws change, as personnel changes, you're going to continue to have some. So don't think once you've addressed it, you've taken care of it. That just may be kind of getting down in the weeds, but on the other hand, I thought it was important to say. Now before we stop, AP asked me for 10 things. You're going to get these printed and said you're going to get these on. There's going to be in your stuff you have available. They said, what 10 things would you say? So I sat down and played with this a while, and these were the 10 that I really thought for today. More are from a couple of presentations than the others. That's because they overlapped. Leaders should be servants serving others in the organization. If you can't communicate, don't try to lead. Effective communication is the effective sharing of meaning. Leaders must adjust their leadership style to fit the situation. Leaders must also be managers. For leadership without management is vision without fulfillment. And by the way, you can't just depend on your managers doing all the managing because you don't know what's going on. So you try the best you can, knowing other people can probably manage it better than you. Leaders must have management skills, and yes, they can be learned. Leaders must focus on both people and processes. Leaders must have a vision. Leaders must have a plan to fulfill the vision. Leaders must communicate the vision, the mission, and the plan. And leaders must implement positive transition and change. Those are really the 10 big points, but I think there were a lot of little sub-points we talked about today. Do we have any questions at all? Yes, let's have some questions.
For women in leadership positions, do you think there are any special implications for when one apologizes for breaking trust to an employee? Often it is more difficult for female leaders to establish respect for their authority in a workplace, and I wonder if this approach could look different for women in power.
I think there is a tendency among some people to treat women leaders differently. I don't tend to, but I'm not sure, but I did at one time. Let's see how I can give a simple answer to that. I'm not going to avoid it. I still think the basics apply in all cases. I believe what happens is leaders must take the role of leader. And sometimes it may take a close colleague or somebody that help people understand that. I think leaders, we get the question just exactly right. And so she asked what, I think it was a woman probably asking. This is just my opinion.
Do you think there are any special implications for when one apologizes for breaking trust to an employee?
No, I think there's no difference on that. I think sometimes the approachability or language we use. See, I find this in my own teaching. I can take a guy, I'm serious. And these are guys that I like. Maybe these are big guys. I say, Yeah. I say, okay, guy. Most of them don't. I won't do that to a woman. I won't. Now, I touched you a while ago because we've been talking, having fun here. There's a lot of, so there are some differences when there's a male-female relationship, but I don't think, I think all the rules apply. When you break trust, you do the same apology.
Next question.
Okay.
Thanks for including the video clip of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It raises a question for me. Do you know of any good resources on different leading styles based on race and culture? That's one question.
I really don't know any. I'm not saying there aren't some things. Probably could best be written by somebody of that culture who is also very much, involved. I don't know of anything.
Her statement is, as a person of color in a leadership role, I often struggle with what the expectations of others are for me as a leader, given my own relational and leadership styles that are influenced by race and class background.
See, one of the things I think is if she could get in contact with women, well, one of the best I ever knew was a woman named Belle Whelan. Belle Whelan was the head of the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, the SACS accrediting agency. She was scary good. I mean, she was just good. It wasn't a fact. She didn't matter if she was a woman, didn't matter if she was a person of color. That didn't make any difference. I didn't see that ever made any difference. I think, though, a person who's been through that could give you a more honest and more informed answer. I'm not trying to step away, but I don't know anything to say or anything written on it. But there may be. I just have never investigated. Any more questions? Or that was it? Okay. Well, those are good. I didn't do too well because I didn't know on the second one. The first one, I think I feel pretty comfortable with my answer. Same basic principles apply. Now, here's just 5 other ideas that I implied or I stated. Leaders must know where to go, how to get there, how to get others to follow. Leaders must be learners. Yes, leaders can be developed. Yes, you keep on learning. If I didn't think I knew more about leadership than I did 25 years ago, something's wrong with me. Oh, I still make a lot of mistakes, but I probably know more about it than I did 5 years ago. I hope, because I try to learn from the mistakes of others as well as my own. From the successes of others, too, I can learn so much. The 3 H's, communicate, relate, motivate. If I were adding a 4th, it would be delegate. Those 3 things, again, that name, because somebody asked, was Pete Land. And you can find a Peter A. Land website that's still out there, which will tell you more about it. I hope to get that on a PDF. The other PDFs I talked about were a couple that I had written for the Air Force that still have the basics. They're just Air Force geared, and they're out there. If you just put John Klein, speaking effectively, you'll find it. Okay, responsibility falls to the leader, and I think the best policy is to give or at least share the credit and take the blame. Oh, I hate it when somebody does something and the leader takes all the credit. Oh, I think that is stupid. All you do is put your people down. You don't make them so willing. Bear Bryant had a great one. Bear Bryant, when things would go bad, he'd say, well, we didn't coach them very well. When things went semi-good, he said, my coaches are doing a good job. They're doing, trying to. He never talked about himself. When things went real good, he just gave the credit to the players. They said they had good coaching, but I'm paraphrasing, those boys know how to play ball. So whatever you read much about Bear Bryant, he was given credit. Some of the greatest leaders give credit. They'll accept the blame when it comes to them, but they're willing to at least share the credit, often just give the credit. Well, thank you for letting me share. I always try to get done at 10 minutes before, and I got done at 11 minutes before, so what do you think of that? So that's your bonus for staying with me. Thank you very much.